Hello, my friends. It is so good to have you here. Today, I want to take you on a journey. We are heading to a city filled with mist, history, and a touch of magic. We are going to London. Take a moment and close your eyes. Can you hear it? A deep, resonant sound. Bong, bong, bong. It is a sound recognized by people across the entire globe. It is the sound of Big Ben. But what is Big Ben exactly? Is it the tower, the clock, or something else entirely? Many assume that Big Ben is the name of the tall, iconic tower standing in London. But here is a little secret that is not quite right. The tower carries a different name. The enormous clock has its own history. And Big Ben? Big Ben is actually a massive bell housed inside the tower. A bell so powerful that its voice travels for miles. Have you ever stopped to wonder how such an enormous bell ended up there? Who created it? And why does it hold such deep meaning for the people of England and the world? Think about your own life for a moment. Is there a sound that means something special to you? Perhaps the patter of rain, or a melody your mother used to hum. For the people of London, Big Ben is the heartbeat of their city. It reminds them that time moves forward and that they are home. In this story, we will travel back through time. We will witness fires, bold ambitions, and tireless effort. We will encounter the men who set out to build the finest clock the world had ever seen. We will discover how a simple bell became a symbol of endurance. Are you ready to walk through history together? Let us begin at a moment when London came dangerously close to losing everything. Picture a cold October night in 1834. The sky above London is not dark. It glows a frightening shade of orange. The Palace of Westminster, the seat of government, is engulfed in flames. Crowds gathered along the River Thames, watching in shock as the ancient buildings collapsed into ash. It was a devastating loss. In a single night, centuries of history were reduced to cinders. And yet, my friends, sometimes something wonderful can grow from tragedy. When the fire finally died down, the people of London refused to surrender. They declared, "We will rebuild, and what we build will be greater than what was lost." The government announced a competition inviting the country's finest architects to design a new palace, one that would project grandeur and reflect the strength of the nation. A man named Charles Barry emerged victorious. He had a magnificent vision. There was just one challenge. Barry was an architect, not a clockmaker. He understood that the new palace required an impressive clock tower, but crafting a timepiece of extraordinary precision was beyond his expertise. The weight of that responsibility must have been immense. He was tasked with creating something timeless, something that would replace loss with wonder. And so, the dream took shape. It was no longer simply about bricks and timber. It was about hope. It was about showing the world that London could rise again. The idea for the tower was born from those flames, intended to serve as a beacon of time for the entire city. But as we shall see, turning a dream into reality is never straightforward. To create a masterpiece, you need the right people around you. Charles Barry led the effort, but he needed a collaborator. He found one in a young man named Augustus Pugin, a gifted designer with a deep love for the Gothic style, those elegant pointed details found on ancient cathedrals. If Barry was the skeleton of the building, Pugin was its spirit. Pugin poured himself into every detail: the wallpaper, the tiles, and most crucially, the ornate face of the clock tower. But the work took a heavy toll. He pushed himself relentlessly until his health gave way. He gave everything he had to that tower. While Pugin shaped the exterior, the government was searching for someone to design the brain of the clock. They had no interest in an ordinary timepiece. They wanted the most precise clock ever built, one that would keep perfect time through wind, snow, and every kind of weather. Most clocks of that era were unreliable, prone to running fast or slow. But London's leaders were uncompromising. Their clock had to be flawless. It was an extraordinarily ambitious goal. Many clockmakers declared it impossible. How could a massive outdoor clock, perched high in a tower, maintain accuracy to the second? Two men believed it could be done. One was a scientist named George Airy, and the other was a clock-obsessed lawyer named Edmund Beckett Denison. Neither was easy to work with. Both were opinionated and frequently clashed with builders and officials alike. But they shared a vision of creating something entirely without precedent. Is it not remarkable how a common dream can unite people, even those who rarely agree? The plans were in place. Now came the hard part, bringing them to life. Let us turn to the heart of the tower, the clock mechanism. Picture a room packed with enormous metal wheels, counterweights, and interlocking gears. This is the machine that drives the clock's hands. Denison oversaw its construction. Brilliant but unyielding, he recognized that strong winds could push against the oversized clock hands and throw off the timekeeping. His solution was an entirely new invention, the gravity escapement. The name may sound intimidating, but the concept is elegant. It acts as a kind of guardian, ensuring the clock advances only at precisely the right moments, shielding the movement from the influence of the weather. Thanks to this innovation, the clock became the most accurate in the world, a true feat of engineering. But there was an amusing quirk. Even with this brilliant mechanism, the clock occasionally needed a small nudge. And the solution? Coins. Old British pennies, to be exact. If the clock runs slightly fast, a penny is placed on top of the pendulum. If it runs slow, a penny is removed. A single penny shifts the clock's speed by 0.4 seconds per day. Remarkable, isn't it? A colossal machine kept in check by a handful of small coins. It is a reminder that even the grandest things in life often hinge on the tiniest details. The clock was a triumph, powerful, intelligent, and elegant. But a clock needs a voice. It needs a way to announce the time to the city. And that brings us to the bell. Here we arrive at the most celebrated chapter of the story, the Great Bell. But were you aware that the bell we hear today was not the original? The first bell was cast in 1856. It was colossal, 16 tons of metal, so large that it required 16 white horses to haul it through the streets of London. The crowds cheered with excitement. Then came devastation. During testing, the bell cracked. The sound was destroyed. All that effort wasted. But no one gave up. The cracked bell was broken apart, its metal melted down, and the work began again. In 1858, a second bell was cast at the Whitechapel Bell Foundry. Slightly smaller at around 13.5 tons, it was nonetheless a giant. This is the bell the world now calls Big Ben. But where did the name come from? Two stories exist. Some say it was named after Sir Benjamin Hall, a tall and well-regarded man who oversaw the construction project. Others say it was named after Ben Conte, a celebrated heavyweight boxer of the time, powerful and unyielding, much like the bell itself. The truth remains uncertain. Perhaps both stories hold a grain of truth. Either way, the name caught on, and soon everyone was talking about Big Ben. The bell was complete. But it still had one final journey to make, upward. It had to be hoisted to the very top of the tower. Imagine attempting that in the 1850s with no electric cranes, only ropes, pulleys, and sheer human effort. It took 30 hours of grueling work to pull the bell up through the interior of the tower, inch by inch. At last, Big Ben was in place. As the bell and clock were being prepared, the tower itself was climbing skyward. Built from brick and clad in fine stone sourced from France and England, its construction was extraordinarily dangerous by the standards of the mid-19th century. There were no safety harnesses. Workers scaled tall ladders and hauled heavy stone blocks high above the ground. The tower stands over 315 feet tall, roughly 96 meters. To Londoners of that era, it must have felt like a skyscraper. Its design was breathtaking, not a plain rectangular block, but a structure adorned with intricate carvings, gilded details, and 4 enormous clock faces. Each clock face is assembled from 312 individual pieces of glass, like a giant mosaic. Inside the tower winds a narrow stone staircase of 334 steps leading up to the belfry, where the bell resides. The tower was completed in 1859, a striking sight rising above the Thames, blending strength with beauty. But a tower is just a structure until it comes to life. London waited. They were ready to hear the tower speak. Picture the scene, the tower complete, the clock set, the bell in position. The whole city holds its breath. The great day arrived, May 31st, 1859, when the clock first began to run. A few weeks later, in July, Big Ben rang out for the very first time. Bong! The sound was deep and commanding, rippling through the air. People paused in the streets and gazed upward. London had found its voice. Then, barely 2 months later, misfortune struck again. Big Ben cracked. Once more. The engineers were heartbroken. Removing the bell was out of the question. It was simply too heavy, and the tower was sealed. So they thought creatively. They rotated the bell slightly so the hammer would strike an undamaged section. They also lightened the hammer and carved a small V-shaped groove along the crack to prevent it from spreading. And it worked. The crack subtly altered the bell's tone, giving it a slightly imperfect quality. But that is the sound the world has come to know and cherish. It is a voice with character, a voice with a story. Before long, Big Ben's chime became woven into the fabric of daily life. In 1923, the BBC began broadcasting the sound on the radio. Suddenly, people across the country, and eventually across the world, could hear Big Ben from their own living rooms. It became more than a clock. It became a companion. It told people when to rise, when to work, when to rest. A steady presence in an ever-changing world. When you hear that sound, remember, it is not perfect. It carries a crack. But that is precisely what makes it extraordinary. Like us, it has its imperfections, yet it continues to ring out with strength and pride. Over the decades, Big Ben has witnessed an immense sweep of history. It has seen monarchs come and go, and watched London transform from a city of horses and carriages to one of cars and computers. But its most defining chapter came during the World Wars. In the Second World War, much of London was ravaged by bombing. One night, a bomb struck the tower itself, damaging one of the clock faces. Yet Big Ben did not fall silent. Through the destruction, the clock continued to tick and the bell to chime. In the darkness of wartime nights, people would listen to those chimes on the radio and draw strength from them. The sound carried a message. We are still here, we are still standing, and time will carry us through. To prevent enemy aircraft from using the illuminated clock faces as a navigational landmark, the lights were extinguished. But the sound could not be suppressed. It was a symbol of resilience, the capacity to endure even in the hardest of times. Big Ben has also graced many joyful occasions. Every New Year's Eve, thousands gather around the tower to count down the final seconds of the year. When the clock strikes midnight and the bell rings out, people embrace and look ahead with hope. Big Ben is there to welcome each new year alongside them, without exception. It is a witness to history, not merely measuring time, but marking the moments that shape our lives. A steadying presence in a world that so often feels rushed and uncertain. As our story draws to a close, let us consider the tower as it stands today. For many years it was simply known as the Clock Tower. Then, in 2012, something meaningful happened. To mark the 60th anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II's reign, the tower was officially given a new name, the Elizabeth Tower. It was a tribute to a queen who, much like the tower itself, had long been a symbol of stability. More recently, the tower underwent an extensive restoration. For 5 years it was wrapped in scaffolding as workers cleaned the stonework, repaired the clock, and refreshed the paintwork. Among their discoveries, the clock hands were not always black. Hidden beneath layers of paint was the original color, a vivid, rich blue, and so the hands were repainted blue, restoring the original vision of Pugin and Barry. In 2022, the restoration was complete. The Elizabeth Tower re-emerged, gleaming and renewed. Big Ben rang out once more, and the people of London rejoiced. Their old friend had returned. So, my friends, what have we taken from this journey? We have learned that Big Ben is a bell, not a tower. We have learned that it was forged from the aftermath of fire and shaped by passion and perseverance. We have learned that it is imperfect, and that this is precisely its strength. The Elizabeth Tower reminds us that time is precious, and that even after fire, war, or a crack in the bell, we can still stand tall and find our voice. The next time you see a photograph of London or catch the sound of a deep bell ringing, I hope it brings a smile to your face. I hope you recall the story of the white horses, the old pennies, and the two Bens. Thank you for joining me on this journey. It has been a true pleasure to share this story with you. Remember, history is not just a collection of dates and names. It is the heart and soul of everything we build. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep dreaming.